Hello, everybody out there on YouTube. We are the middle-aged guys, and we bullshit about nothing. Well, on a general basis, but this particular video, yes, we are going to be bullshitting about Nintendo again. Sue us. I don't fucking care. Let's go ahead and let's get the introductions out of the way. I am the Reverend.
The theme here.
And I'm Grey Mouse 1.
Now, Nintendo, for all the success that they've seen throughout the last few months with the release of the Switch, the 3DS isn't slowing down. It's still, guess what? It's still sold more than the Xbox One and the PS3. So, and it's making Nintendo a lot of money. And with all the things that are going on with Nintendo, and also with their forays into mobile being mostly successful, except for a little faux pas with Mario Run. From what I've seen for Fire Emblem Heroes, they didn't make that sort of mistake in everything else in the mobile scene. You know, Nintendo has been rather successful as of late. And guess what? Majority of our videos, and I do recognize this, and I'm going to go ahead and put this disclaimer out now, you know, over the last year have been pretty positive whenever we go ahead and talk about Nintendo. And, you know, I have to say that it's not just us being nostalgic fans. It's us being very honest and positive about their position in the gaming industry. However, that particularly kind of changed, and that shifted with two particular things that happened this last week for Nintendo. The very first thing that happened with Nintendo that seems to be very troubling for a lot of people is that, guess what? We are in the first few weeks of August, the second quarter of fiscal year 2018 as far as financials. And a lot of businesses go with everything that's been reported out for like financial numbers, profit sharing, and everything else. If you're somebody in the corporate world and you're an executive on like, you know, an executive board or something else like that, who is investing in a lot of these huge companies, not your mom and pop shops. I mean, like the huge companies that employ tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people, maybe nationwide or worldwide as it goes. You know, this particular time of year is the time of year that you go ahead and you announce your financials out, and you're either giving your investors good news or bad news. Well, for Nintendo, their particular investment numbers and profits have been pretty positive, you know, up all the way, you know, all along the board. You know, the Switch is doing gangbusters for them and is very, very successful. However, you know, if you're somebody who's looking for a Switch, who's outside of that particular bubble, you know, somebody who wants to go ahead and try to buy one for yourself, or if you want to go ahead and scalp it off on eBay for $600, I don't know who you are. You know, it's really hard to go ahead and walk into your local Walmart and pick up a Switch, or walk into your local GameStop and pick up a Switch. Nintendo has gone out of their way, and they've assured everybody that they're trying really hard to make sure that there is a regular supply, especially with the big games that are coming up. However, this is not going to be very easy for them, especially considering that Japan Display Incorporated, which is the primary supplier of their screens, is actually on the verge of bankruptcy. JDI Incorporated went ahead and they released out their quarterly earnings and their quarterly reports and financials, and they reported on their last, you know, public investor meeting, their last financial call, that they're reporting a net loss of $240 million. Okay, that's $240 million. Now, what this really entails is that this is the reason why it's really important, okay? When you have a Switch, Grey Mouse, you got your Switch with you, right? Yeah, hold it up. All right, the touchscreen on that is a capacitive LCD screen on it, and that compromises the main primary mobile functions of the Switch as far as the touch functionality and everything. Well, Nintendo primarily goes through one single supplier to go ahead and actually manufacture those screens. That would be Japan Display Incorporated, okay? The problem with the screens, though, is that LED screens have, by and large, fallen out of vogue with a lot of the other manufacturers or brand names that might use something like that. Like a lot of the cell phone manufacturers biggest of which is Apple, Samsung, and everything else. Well, Samsung, they make their own screens, all right? But Apple, LG, and all of the other major cell phone manufacturers, they've moved on to OLED screens, which use a different technology and they use a different manufacturing process, okay? Because of that, the standard LCD display, especially in the small form factor for something like this or something like the Switch, guess what? That is no longer in demand from these main manufacturers. The only people who are really propping JDI Inc. at this time is Nintendo for the Switch. And when you only have one OEM manufacturer going ahead and handling and providing your main source of revenue in comparison to all the other OEM manufacturers out there in the world, whether it be Apple, LG, Nokia, or all the other, smartphone developers or tablet developers that are out there, it puts them in a really tough spot. Because of that, this may actually influence Nintendo's supply for the Switch inadvertently, where, guess what? It's going to be really hard, even if Nintendo does have the open production lines to go ahead and build more. What are your thoughts on this particular issue, guys? I know it's kind of a roundabout global ecosystem, corporate, synergistic fucking relationship type thing that maybe people may not expect from us here on this particular channel. But considering that we're all connected, especially through the internet, we have access to these particular pieces of information, and we can see that this may mean really, really bad things for people who are hoping to get the Switch in the future. Floor is open, guys. What are your thoughts?
Well, this kind of means that I won't receive a Switch for the next 3 to 5 years. I mean, it's probably what's going to be like that anyway because you can't fucking find it. But this puts a damper on all of that. I mean, damn, they only going through one manufacturer, and then next thing you know, something happens. Something like this happens. So, yeah, it's wow, damn. That's all screwed up, especially for people that were initially thinking that they were going to wait and then they were going to get this thing later. Now that's jeopardized at this point because can't manufacture the whole screen itself, can't make this thing, can't bring it out. Gray Mouse, what about you? What are your initial thoughts?
It's funny. It's like this is the second thing that's going wrong for Nintendo. First, they're sharing a chipset with Apple. Can't get those in time anymore because Apple's coming out with their iPhone 8 or whatever it may be here in the next couple of months. And now this with their screen, it's like, wow, it's like Nintendo keeps, getting hit in the face. But it doesn't really surprise me, to be honest, because I've been around long enough to know that, it seems like a lot of these companies gravitate for one point of failure. It's always like that. They put one, meaning that they rely on one company to provide that particular part. There may be several companies that they provide to construct your Switch, but all those companies got to work in unison together to make the product. So if one company goes bankrupt and that's a major component to the Switch. Although you can put it in the dock, but you can't look. You have to have the whole. It kind of destroys the whole portable factor of the portable system. So it's really bizarre to me that companies back themselves in the wall or paint themselves in the corner with this. I mean, I would think that Nintendo, how long they've been in the gaming industry, would know better than to rely on one source for certain things. But I could understand too, is because maybe it's cheaper when you're doing one company. It's you got to remember that the company is a company trying to make money. They're trying to get money out. So, and they want to keep their costs as low as possible to make, profit on their device or whatever they're selling you. So yeah, I mean, I can understand from a manufacturer or standpoint, but again, it goes down to that old thing that gets you every time: supply and demand. If you have this huge demand, but your supply can't meet that demand, there's going to be shortages. I mean, just like what you said a few minutes ago, theme, that you can't find, switches. I mean, I went to my local Walmart. I found two. Actually, they had two switches in that Walmart. I was really surprised. 99% of the time I go there and the cabinet's empty. Along with the 3DS, cabinet's empty. I mean, they never have those. They sell out as soon as they get them. In fact, I've even gone to a point to where I asked the people, I said, hey, you got any in the back that you haven't pulled out in the front? Like, no, you're not the first person to ask these days. So, and this is really going to, I don't know, I hope they have enough out there, and especially since Mario Odyssey's coming out for the holidays, and these things are going to be, look, they're still wanted, and you can't find them. So I hope that Nintendo comes up with a solution soon. I hope that company, I mean, do you think, Reverend, that Nintendo would throw money at them? I mean, that would be conflict of interest. I would think, not really conflict of interest, but maybe they could get the parts for it cheaper if they put more to keep that company afloat. I mean, I don't know the inner working of a corporate company on a, so I don't know.
I think the truth of the matter is, when it comes to JDI, all right, is that although Nintendo may be their single biggest OEM customer right now for displays and everything else, I'm just going to be honest, with the number of cell phone manufacturers that are out there, whether they be Apple, LG, Samsung, Nokia, or Ericsson, or any of the other ones that are out there.
Wait, Ericsson's still around?
Yeah, Ericsson's still around. All right, well, or let's just say Sony, okay?
Yeah,
because that was a Sony-owned brand. All right,
okay.
But the truth of the matter is that with the number of cell phone OEM manufacturers not being part of their customers and stuff like that, Nintendo, even though they're a big customer, they're not going to compensate for that number of profits or people not coming into them. Okay, and the thing about this is that it sounds to me like, look, finding yourself a local manufacturer, somebody who's going to sit there and help cut down on the logistical side of, hey, supply, transport, and everything else, manufacturing components and all of that. That's business 101. That's a smart move and everything. With this particular one, Nintendo is going to be able to find other manufacturers. However, that particular transition period to sit there and secure another main manufacturer is definitely going to translate to being a hit in the number of production units that are able to roll off the line for the fucking Switch. Okay? And the thing is that with this particular one, it's not just a Switch. It's also the 3DS and the 2DS.
The new 3DS.
All right.
Yeah.
And the thing is that, with the 3DS and the new 3DS and the 2DS, I'm not going to worry so much about those, because as far as their hold on the particular market, there's already over 60 million of those things out in the world. Okay. Guess what? They already have a very solid hold in the market. And let's just be honest, how many years has it been out? It's already been out for almost 5-6 years. Guess what? That particular piece of hardware is going to be cycled out sooner or later. All right. So when it comes to the Switch, though, like Gray Mouse pointed out, you have Super Mario Odyssey, which is coming up. And look, with or without Super Mario Odyssey, Christmas time is the biggest shopping time of the year when it comes to retail, all right? The Switch is still an item that is subject to the rules of retail. And if you don't have that many out there, or you don't have the ability to go ahead and manufacture that many, that means really bad things come Christmas time if you're somebody who's trying to make money.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to make it like this holiday season.
What people forget too is that the Switch came out in March, so this will be the first holiday season with Switches on the shelves. So you damn right that people are going to be pulling these things off the shelf left and right come Christmas time.
Yeah, I think the thing is though is that considering the position that Nintendo is in right now, and considering that they can find other manufacturers who can go ahead and build, comparable components, all right, comparable manufacturer components to go ahead and supply the Switch with, that's not going to take too much time for them to go ahead and do that. Yes, it's going to produce a lull in the production of the Switch, all right, and yes, that is going to go ahead and influence things coming out for the holiday time. The one thing that I have to go ahead and point out is that, is it going to mean, doom and gloom for them? No, I don't think so. But yeah, this is gonna keep them, instead of being able to go ahead and sell like 12, 13 million fucking units by the end of this year, is gonna cap them to around 10 million units. All right. And in the large scheme of things, that is pretty significant if you're looking at a profit margin, especially for the end of the year.
Well, you mentioned earlier that Nintendo can bring, some what do you call it, Samsung or LG on board to make these things. But isn't this part of it? Isn't this proprietary?
As the
same thing is like you could say with the chips that are shared with Apple. That's not really proprietary chips. I mean, they could just move on to a different. Okay, so you know what I mean? They could go on. I think there are AMD chips in here, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
No. The thing about it is that with Apple, it was all about the NAND memory chip, the actual storage for the system on board. With this particular one, it's not so much that other manufacturers won't be able to make LCD screens. All right, it's just generally speaking, the whole industry is moving past LCD screens. Okay, they're moving on to LED and OLED screens. Okay, though the technology is cheap enough and it's prolific enough out there, whether or not it be cell phones or TVs or computer monitors or anything like that, that they're moving past that. It's gotten to the point where LCD screens, if they're really, really cheap, but when it comes to what the difference in quality to the actual product, the end user product and everything else, it's very nominal as far as the actual cost goes. So a lot of manufacturers, by and large, are moving to LED screens. Okay, that's just how it is right now. My first HD TV back in the day, like in 2006, 2007, when I purchased it, was an LCD panel. Guess what? It was expensive as fuck. Fast forward now, another 10 years, LCD is like, you can get that on fucking, a smartwatch, all right? Guess what? Even smartwatches aren't using LCD screens now. They're using LED screens. Mm-hmm. So the industry as a whole, not just gaming industry, not just cell phones, but everything has moved past LCD, where guess what? You have LED screens or OLED screens that have much higher display quality, and the technology has gotten affordable enough that none of the OEM manufacturers want to go ahead and use that. One of the last holdouts for that was Nintendo. One of the last holdout manufacturers for that was JDI. Because of that, they find themselves in this hard position where it's like, well, JDI wasn't able to sit there and keep up with everybody else. Because of that, they're in a hard financial position. And by consequence, is going to influence everybody who has a Switch. Well, not everybody who has a Switch. Everybody who wants to get a hold of the Switch, probably from this point forward.
Is JDI the sole provider of those?
They're the main man.
I'm sorry, wait. Let me rephrase that. Is Nintendo JDI's sole customer?
They are their biggest customer right now. And that's the thing. Like I said, a few minutes ago, is that as big as Nintendo is and as big as the Switch is, that's not going to make up for the other OEM manufacturers that rely on that sort of technology. Okay? for smartphones and mobile devices and other stuff like that, you know. And it's just one of those things where, you know, the quantity just isn't going to make up for it. All right. Unfortunately, that isn't the only thing that's been facing off Nintendo this particular week. You know, whether or not they're looking at like trying to deal with scarcity issues that might impact things in the future. Nintendo was actually hit with a lawsuit earlier this week by Gamevice, and they went ahead and they filed a copyright infringement lawsuit surrounding the Joy-Cons for the Nintendo Switch. All right. Now, the funny thing about this is that the Gamevice pad that was put out, let's see here. The Gamevice game controller was put out in 2015. And what it is that it's a set of controllers that are connected to a flexible backing that can be used for Apple and Samsung devices and other traditional smart devices to allow somebody to go ahead and game on these mobile devices. I'm going to have pictures and links and everything to the whole actual case. I'm looking at the PDF for the actual filed copyright infringement, and they go pretty in depth with this particular thing. A long story short, they are pretty much claiming that Nintendo either advertently or inadvertently has infringed on their patent for these particular controllers, and they are suing Nintendo, asking for a cease of sale. All right, now cease of sale. Yeah, they want to go ahead. No, not for the Joy-Cons, not just the Joy-Cons, but the Switch altogether.
The Switch, yeah, right.
Yeah, because the Switch comes packed in with Joy-Cons. So yeah, they are asking for the cease of sale for the Nintendo Switch, and they went ahead and they filed this particular case on August 9th, 2017. Guys, what are your thoughts on this particular case?
Well, seeing how the Switch is barely out there is almost like it's already been a cease and desist as far as selling them. No, but all seriousness, fucking no. I can't even gather my thoughts about this one because.
So let me ask you a question. Who's this company?
This is Gamevice, and what they do is...
I ask you again, who's this company?
Yeah, and what they do is that they...
Who the fuck are you?
Well, here's the thing. When it comes to patent law, the only thing is that what should count with patent law, if you're somebody who is technologically knowledgeable and if the patent office is doing their job correctly, is that, hey, look, there are particular processes and pieces of technology that are put together that you want to go ahead and patent, you know, and protect just in case anything else comes up like this, where you sit there and say, oh, no, look, I came up with this first, you know, and for marketing and financial reasons, I can go ahead and I can protect what I have patented. All right. There's also a reason why patents only last for a certain number of years.
Well, what kills me is this. Number one, Nintendo filed this patent. So shouldn't it have gotten caught at that particular point if the patent office was doing its job? Like, hey, wait a minute, we have this one company over here that thought of this already. You know, so I don't understand how. Is it because Nintendo is that the Switch is doing stellar right now? Is that this company, oh, I want some of that. I want to try to, I mean, this company what is it again?
Gamevice.
This company wants Nintendo to take the Switch off of the shelf.
A cease and desist, totally.
Yeah.
And I've seen pictures of their device, and it looks nothing like this at all.
Well, that's the thing about patents is that it's really not really about like the way that it looks. It's more about procedurally how something works.
Function.
Well, no, yeah. I got that. But the one they had like a, you know, like we joked when we were talking about when the Switch first came out, we put our iPad and we put our controllers on the side of it. You know, when we were talking about when the Switch was just coming out, we first saw what it actually looked like. We all were joking about that. But, I mean, does that company have gyros and all that stuff in these devices?
No, the way that from what I understand, just actually looking at the actual patent itself, is that they describe as two individual controllers that are connected to a smart device through a bridged connection. All right, and that through that bridge connection, they're able to go ahead and connect and communicate with the actual device and the controllers. Okay, the way that they have it worded, though, and I'm looking at the actual filing right here, the PDF document of the filing, because it's public knowledge. You could look this up yourself.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have a link below. They're saying that because the Nintendo Switch has rails and it has a solid back, and that it communicates through those rails as far as the Joy-Cons into the Switch, and the back is used to secure those rails, that is what is infringing on their copyright.
And what about the portable use as far as you can take the Joy-Cons off, connect it to other things? And
that's not what that's not included in their copyright. Okay?
Yeah, okay.
And that's not included in their case.
So they're talking about this right here, the rails. That's on
the fact that you have the two Joy-Cons connected to rails that are fixed to a frame that spans the whole of the Switch. That back portion right there of the Switch.
This right here?
Yeah.
Or
like I said,
right
I've got no, not everything on that connects the backside of the Switch, because you see that's obviously fixed to the Joy-Cons too via the rails. That constitutes their fixed, webbing for whatever they had for the Gamevice device.
That don't even make no sense.
It's part of their patent, though. That's the thing. All right. Now, here's the thing. This is what I'm going to say with this particular one. I think this is bullshit. Okay, I'm going to say that right now. Okay, I really think this is bullshit. Not because there's a thing with patents and everything else. Is that look? Okay, when news came out that Sony had patented a portable device that looks something similar to the Switch, people were yelling copycat all over the fucking place. Yeah. Not knowing that if you looked at the dates of the patent, that they actually filed the patent before Nintendo filed their patent for the fucking Switch, which was known as the NX back then. All right, so just saying. All right, but the thing about that is that even before that, back in 2013, there was the Razer tablet device that was put out that completely predates all of this by fucking years. Okay, since then, the number of controllers that have been available to actually be used to hook onto either a phone or a fucking tablet, there are multiple of those that have come out since 2015. So why the hell did Gamevice go ahead and go out of their way and single out the Switch?
Because the Switch is successful.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's my point.
And I think that's one of the things. And the thing is that, if Gamevice wants to sit there and get into like a litigation war with Nintendo, which has a lot of experience with a lot of this stuff, they haven't won everything that relates to like copyright infringement. In fact, they lost the lawsuit that was filed against them for the 3D technology on the 3DS.
Yep.
Okay. But if you think about that, it kind of makes sense that they released out the 2DS XL,
yep,
which doesn't have that at all. Okay, yep. So guess what? The thing about that is that when they lost that lawsuit, they didn't lose a lump sum of money. They had to pay a percentage of all the sales of their units going forward. It makes sense that they're going toward the 2DS XL now. All right. So I mean, this particular thing I'm just an armchair analyst. All of us are armchair analysts and commentators on this. It sounds like bullshit, but God knows that Nintendo doesn't need more fucking outside external stumbling blocks to keeping the Switch on the shelf.
This is about as stupid as fucking trying to copyright or trying to patent the word candy. or the word react or the word chocolate. You know, you know, you're like, yeah, I'm throwing stabs, but my point still stands. This is retarded.
It is retarded, but the thing about it is that we have to keep in mind that unfortunately, the way that business litigation is set up, this allows for something like that. And even though, you know, Nintendo may not have a hand directly in this, it's going to influence supply. It's going to influence the amount of units that they can go ahead and produce, especially leading up to this very anticipated and busy holiday season. All right. You know, and that's something that has to be considered. The one thing that I got to say is that, you know, somehow, some way out there, the haters are going to say that Nintendo's to blame for this.
Should what?
I like I said, somehow, somewhere out there, the haters are going to say that Nintendo is to blame for all of this.
Right.
That it's their fault.
I mean,
But as Gray Mouse pointed out, you know, as soon as Nintendo released like pictures, photos, patents shouldn't have been caught right then and there.
Here's the thing, though. The patent office is not run by engineers.
Okay.
It's run by pencil pushers. All right. And there's a reason why, you know, patent litigation is such a huge thing right now, is that's all handled by pencil pushers, bean counters, and law people. It's not run by engineers. All right. But really, at this point in time, what we really want to know, folks, is, you know, what do you think about what's going on with Nintendo, the DPI situation, and this particular lawsuit? Is this something that's going to impact the way that Nintendo is going to be able to fit supply? I think it probably will, unfortunately. Even if it's just for a momentary setback, I think it's going to impact supply, which, you know, yeah, that really, really sucks, you know, because the thing is that all the detractors are going to blame Nintendo for it, even though this is stuff that's completely external and outside of their control. We really want to know what your thoughts are on it. Did we miss something? Is there something that we don't know? Is there something about this patent law that can be brought up that can make Nintendo lose? You can tell us that by leaving us a comment below. While you're at it, if you're so kind, go ahead and mash on that like button. And if you really like what we do around here and you want to stick around, hit subscribe, turn on those notifications, and you'll know whenever we put out something new. That all said, everything about this particular bullshit for Nintendo ends right here. I'm the Reverend.
The Theme here.
And I'm Gray Mouse 1.
Once again, for the benefits of common sense, logic, and gaming, credits.